Hello, aspiring legal eagles. Welcome to our deep dive into Unit 1 of the Law of Torts. I'm your guide today, and let's make this session as thrilling as a courtroom drama. We'll start with the evolution of tort law. Think of it as a backstory to why we have these rules protecting us from everyday wrongs. First off, the origins. Tort law developed in England as part of the common law system, evolving from ancient customs into structured legal principles. The word tort itself comes from the Latin tortum, meaning twisted or wrong. Imagine it as society's way of straightening out crooked actions. In India, unlike the codified Indian Penal Code or Contract Act, tort law remains uncodified. We rely on principles borrowed from English common law, applied through the lens of justice, equity, and good conscience. This flexibility allows Indian courts to adapt it to our unique context. Historically, tort law has gone through fascinating stages. In primitive societies, it was all about compensation for physical injuries, like if someone accidentally hurt you during a hunt, you'd get repaid in goods or services. Then came the feudal system, where lords or masters bore responsibility for their servants' actions. Picture a medieval lord paying for a knight's mishap. By the common law courts era, it shifted to recognizing individual rights and remedies, empowering people to sue for personal harms. And in the modern era, it's exploded. Today, torts cover consumer rights, environmental protection, human rights, and more. For example, in a landmark 2024 ruling, the Supreme Court of India declared protection from climate change impacts as a fundamental right under Articles 14 and 21 of the Constitution, linking environmental torts directly to human dignity. That's how tort law evolves with society. Now, let's unpack the nature and scope. At its core, a tort is a civil wrong, distinct from a breach of contract or trust, aimed at providing remedies like monetary damages or injunctions to stop the harm. It's not about punishment, it's about making the victim whole again. The scope is vast. It safeguards personal rights such as life, liberty, reputation, and property. And it keeps expanding with our changing world. Take medical negligence. Think of a doctor botching a surgery. In a recent 2025 case, the Supreme Court ordered a hospital to refund 10 lakh rupees in a negligence complaint, emphasizing that consumer forums can't invent new facts beyond pleadings. Or industrial accidents, like factory mishaps causing injuries. Defamation on social media? Super relevant today. In 2025, the Supreme Court reversed a takedown order against Wikimedia Foundation in a defamation suit by Annie Media, upholding free speech while balancing reputation rights. And environmental torts. The National Green Tribunal slapped a 45 crore rupees fine on the National Highways Authority of India in 2024 for environmental damage during construction, showing torts' preventive power. Torts are both preventive, stopping harms before they escalate, and compensatory, fixing what's broken. Class. Can you think of a tort you've encountered in the news lately? Maybe a privacy invasion on Instagram? Share in the comments below, and we'll discuss next time. Stay tuned, this is just the beginning. Alright, class, let's get crystal clear on what a tort actually means, because definitions are the building blocks of law. Two giants in legal scholarship nailed it down for us. First, Sir John Salmon defines a tort as a civil wrong for which the remedy is an action for damages, and which is not exclusively a breach of contract, breach of trust, or breach of other equitable obligations. In simple terms, it's a private injury where you sue for compensation, not something tied to a deal or fiduciary duty. Imagine your neighbor's dog bites you, not a contract issue, but definitely a tort. Then there's Percy Winfield. Tortious liability arises from the breach of a duty primarily fixed by law. This duty is towards persons generally, and its breach is redressable by an action for unliquidated damages. Unliquidated means the court decides the amount based on the harm, not a preset figure. The duty? It's imposed by society, not agreement, like the duty not to spread false rumors about someone online. The essentials boil down to three. 1. A wrongful act or omission, something you did or failed to do that causes harm. 2. Legal damage, meaning an infringement of a legal right, even if no money was lost. 3. A remedy under civil law, like damages or an order to stop. Now, differences, let's compare tort and crime using this handy table. On nature, a tort is a private wrong, affecting an individual, while a crime is a public wrong against the state and society. For example, if someone assaults you, it's a crime, punished by jail under IPC Section 323, and a tort, you sue for medical bills. Remedy, in torts, it's compensation or damages to restore you. In crimes, punishment like imprisonment or fines to deter others. Action by, the injured person files a civil suit. In tort, the state or prosecution handles criminal cases. Object, torts aim to compensate the victim, make you whole. Crimes maintain law and order, protecting society. Picture this, a hacker spreads your private photos online. Crime. Yes, under IT Act for privacy violation. Tort. Absolutely, defamation or invasion of privacy, where you could sue for emotional distress damages. In a 2025 Gujarat High Court case, screenshots of defamatory social media posts were accepted as evidence, leading to compensation for the victim. See how they overlap but differ? Question for you. If a company leaks toxic waste harming your health, is it more tort or crime? Think about it. Moving forward, class, let's contrast torts with contracts. This table highlights the key differences clearly. Source of duty. In torts, it's imposed by law automatically, no choice involved. In contracts, it's created by the parties' agreement. Consent. Torts happen without consent. Contracts are all about mutual agreement. Remedy. Torts offer unliquidated damages, court decided. Contracts often have liquidated damages preset in the agreement. Right violated. Tort is a right in rem, against the world, like your right to bodily integrity. Contract is right in personam, against a specific person, like a buyer-seller deal. Example time, if a delivery guy crashes into your gate while delivering, no contract with you, it's tort, law imposes duty of care. But if you contracted him and he breaches terms, it's contract law. In real life, a 2025 Delhi High Court ruling upheld an influencer's right to criticize a brand based on lab reports, treating it as fair comment under tort, defamation defense, not contract breach. Now, mental elements, the mindset behind the act. First, intention. It's your state of mind to cause a wrongful act, but not always required. In strict liability cases like Rylance v. Fletcher, 1868, where water from a reservoir flooded a mine, liability hit without proving intent, just because you brought something dangerous onto your land. In India, this evolved to absolute liability in the 1986 Sensi Mehta case after the oleum gas leak, holding industries strictly accountable for hazardous escapes. Modern twist. Environmental torts, like the 2024 NGT fine on NHAI for construction damage, apply similar principles without needing intent proof. Motive, the why behind the act, usually irrelevant in torts. But a malicious motive can crank up damages, like in defamation where spite makes the award bigger. Example, spreading false rumors about a colleague to get them fired, motive aggravates. Malice has two flavors. Malice in law, a wrongful act without justification, intent irrelevant. Example, publishing defamatory material even without personal grudge, just the act counts. Malice in fact, actual ill will or spite. Example, wrongful dismissal due to personal hatred, like firing someone because of a vendetta. In a 2025 Chhattisgarh case, a hospital was fined 16 lakh rupees for negligence leading to death, where hidden motives in record-keeping worsened the liability. Class, spot malice in a celebrity tweet storm? Let's debate. Finally, the maxims, these Latin gems are the philosophical heart of thoughts. Let's break them down with stories to make them stick. First, ubi jus ibi remedium, where there's a right, there's a remedy. This is tort law's backbone. If a legal right is violated, courts must provide relief. In Ashby v. White, 1703, the plaintiff was wrongly prevented from voting, no financial loss, but the court awarded damages because his right was infringed. It's like saying, your vote matters, even if you didn't lose money. In India, this echoes in human rights cases. Second, damnum sine injuria, damage without legal injury. You suffer actual loss, but no right violated? No remedy. The Gloucester Grammar School case, 1410, a teacher opens a rival school, causing financial loss to another, but no legal monopoly right broken, so no suit. Modern example, a new cafe opens next door, hurting your business, tough luck, competition isn't a tort. Third, injuria sine damno, legal injury without damage. Violate a right, even without loss? Still actionable. Back to Ashby v. White for the voting denial. In India, Bhim Singh v. State of J&K, 1986, an MLA was wrongfully detained, missing assembly, no physical harm, but the Supreme Court awarded compensation for liberty violation. Fast forward to 2025, the SC declared climate protection a fundamental right, allowing suits for environmental harms even before personal loss, tying into human rights torts. These maxims remind us, torts prioritize rights over mere losses. Quiz, class, if pollution violates your clean air right but hasn't sickened you yet, which maxim applies? Apply this to real life, it's empowering. That's Unit I wrapped. Keep questioning, future lawyers, see you next.